Hi teachers, welcome back to Florentis Learning. I'm Meaghan, and today I'm joined by Kathy, an online ESL teacher who's built a thriving classroom on Outschool. She teaches young learners around the world and uses the Florentis Learning curriculum to keep her lessons engaging, organized, and fun. And so today we're going to talk to Kathy about her journey. We're going to hear some of her stories from getting her first students to keeping classes full and practical tips that anyone can use, whether you teach on Outschool or independently. So if you are joining us today, just drop your information in the chat. Let us know where you're joining from, age group you teach. We'd love to hear from you. And so welcome, Kathy.
Thank you for having me.
We've chatted back and forth on Messenger lots of times, but I don't know if we've ever actually chatted.
I don't think so, but I've seen you on plenty of videos to feel like I already know you.
Awesome. Can you maybe start by telling us just a little bit about yourself, who the students are that you teach, and maybe why you decided to teach on Outschool?
Sure. So my bachelor's degree is in elementary education, and for many of my adult career years, I did work in a brick and mortar school. It was actually a private Christian school where my children were attending. But when my youngest son was getting ready to graduate high school, and my oldest son was married and getting ready to have kids, I wanted to have a more free schedule so that I could have more time to spend with my grandchildren. And I had a few friends who were at the time teaching on VIPKid. And I just thought that was the coolest thing ever. And so I started teaching online. I stopped teaching in person. And I started teaching online part-time on VIPKid and also GoGoKid. I think like many of us online teachers did, right? Started out at one of the Chinese companies or several of them. And so that was great. And I learned a lot. And I'm so thankful and grateful for all the real amazing training I got from both of those companies. Also being able to make an income from home. And then in 2021, everybody had their 2021 experience, right?
Yeah.
So in 2020, and backing up, a few of my friends when it was the pandemic, so 2020, I had made a few friends at VIPKid, and they were YouTubers, and they were making all these videos about how they were also teaching on Outschool and having a lot of success, because that was, boom time for Outschool, right, during the pandemic. Yeah. And so I always kept in the back of my mind, I really don't have time for this. I don't really want to teach during the day. This working early mornings is really working for my schedule. But I just kind of kept it in the back of my mind. And then when online teacher dude, Tim, he actually lived in China for part of his career. And so I felt like he was very trustworthy source. And he started talking maybe like in January, February, March, somewhere around then in 2021 about how it seemed like the Chinese market for ESL was getting ready to be done. I really took his words to heart. And so I began the application process for Outschool because I was afraid, hey, I might lose my job. And so I technically was hired or got a contract with Outschool in June of 2021, but I didn't start teaching there until my last day at VIPKid was October 31st, 2021. And basically on November 1st, I said, okay, my full-time job is now to make Outschool successful. And so I kind of that's where I started Outschool, basically.
Awesome. Yeah, I certainly did VIPKid and Magic Ears and all of those things as well at one point. And then prior to that was classroom teacher. So sort of a similar journey. And I see Lacey is joining us from Oregon and teaches K-7 reading and ESL. And so if anyone else who's watching, if you've taught on Outschool, let us know. If maybe you don't, certainly drop some information in the chat. So on Outschool, what kinds of classes do you offer?
So I originally started offering kind of mainstream classes that were from my previous years of being an elementary teacher, because at the time, Outschool was actually, like, when I was hired at Outschool, they sent me a letter or an email that said, this is not an ESL platform. We see your background as an ESL. Do not create ESL classes. Because at the time, I think they were getting this influx of teachers from all of the Chinese companies who were wanting to teach ESL, and that really was not their foundation. So I started that and was having zero success. And but then I was noticing there were ESL classes on Outschool. And I was like, you know what, I'm just going to make ESL classes and I'm just going to see what happens. And so November and December of 2021, I think I earned $50 maybe. and then starting in January is when I really started creating ESL classes. At the beginning, there was no ESL curriculum or very little ESL curriculum that you could either purchase or subscribe to or even find for free that kind of had the same sort of setup. So I was originally creating my own slide presentations through PowerPoint to start, which was immensely stressful because you're the creator of a curriculum company, the time and just the work and effort that goes into just one lesson. And it was a tough start, but it was a start.
What were sort of your biggest, questions or worries when you joined Outschool? And I know you said you preferred early mornings. Do you now teach early mornings or did you?
I do. I teach, usually I start at 4:30 a.m., although sometimes I will go as early as 3:30 a.m. And I will, so I'm in Eastern time. So it's about 12 to 14 hours, depending on which country away. So it's almost an exact match, right? Morning to night. And I go through 11 a.m. So I do sometimes hit some of the Middle Eastern, European, and even some that, because there are ESL students in the US. So I actually have some students that live in Pacific time right now. And they take a class at 7 a.m. before they go to school. So they love it. So I do kind of catch like every time zone, it seems like, almost, because of the span. But yeah, it's been great.
And how did you sort of get those students? Like, did you have to do anything special? Did you just create classes and Outschool had people and they found you, or?
So I do feel like a lot of the success has come from being at the right place in the right time, first of all, because I did start teaching ESL at a time when Outschool was saying, don't teach ESL. But then I think they woke up to the fact that this is actually a cash cow that they wanted to get in on.
Yeah.
So very shortly after I started there, they actually created platforms that are in Korean. I think they have a Japanese, a Chinese, and maybe a Spanish. So if you scroll all the way down to the bottom of their website, you'll see you can click on, and I'm pretty sure those are the languages that I can see. So, and they are actively promoting ESL now. So there was that. I was there at the right place at the right time. I started, when I first created classes, I started with a low price as kind of an introductory first time teacher, which I would recommend to anyone. Don't stay there, but start there because that's very attractive. And also I did advertise some on Facebook groups, which again, I think at the time, Outschool did actually create and promote and kind of run, with Outschool paid employees, a Facebook group for a short time. It's not anymore run by Outschool. It's kind of private, but I mean, it's kind of just there. But they had a Taiwan, Hong Kong Facebook group where you could promote classes, and they were actively trying to recruit students through that Facebook group. I think that helped me at that time. I do still advertise in Facebook groups. I don't know that it really gets me many students, but I do put it out there every now and then with a coupon or something like that. But I do actually believe that really Outschool does a great job of marketing their classes. They're on all the social medias, and I think that they are. I know that they're promoting their classes on the social medias in the Asian countries as well. the ones that they can freely do it anyway.
Yeah.
Maybe not China so much, but Korea, Japan, definitely they're advertising over there as well.
And so your students, obviously you have some Chinese students, but you obviously have a lot of other students too then.
Right. I would say the most of my students come from South Korea. And Outschool is definitely advertising in South Korea. So I have mostly South Korea, Japan, but then I do kind of maybe coming in third at like a tie would be Hong Kong, Taiwan, and mainland China. And then, I kind of have like a little sprinkle that comes from random countries. Like I have some students from Singapore all of a sudden. And just, Europe sometimes. sometimes I'll get a student from India or somewhere in the Middle East. I've had Saudi Arabian students. So it just really depends.
So what was sort of that one class or student that gave you that, like, yes, I can do this feeling and this is going to work on Outschool?
I think at the start, actually, I had a student from, it was I'm pretty sure it was Greenland. So it was just like random, right?
Yeah.
But I had a student from Greenland, and her mom would come to class with her. She would sit side by side with her mom. And this mom wrote the most glowing 5-star review. It was like long, paragraphs long. And I just remember thinking, and this was when I was like scrappy, right? I was doing my own 6-slide PowerPoints that I was just kind of stretching out, right? Because it was so hard to have the time to make all these materials. But she wrote this glowing 5-star review. And I was like, you know what?
Oh. Think you've frozen or I've frozen. Ah, okay. We lost Kathy, but I will bring her back. I can see she's there.
I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened. Something happened. Anyway, I don't know where that cut out. But anyway, when that mom wrote that glowing 5-star review, and I didn't even teach that student for very long. She was in and out, within a few months, but it gave me the confidence that I needed to really keep going.
So you mentioned you do some, you'll put some stuff on Facebook on occasion, do coupons, that sort of thing. What about like your actual, like, how have you made your classes on Outschool stand out? Like, do you have really interesting titles? Do you offer things that are different maybe?
So I do not try to make interesting titles. I try to make titles that have keywords in them that will show up on a search engine. So Outschool has your title, and then there's like a little section where I think you can have up to 180 characters, or maybe that's like a description. And both the title and the description will show up in a search. So my titles are not catchy and interesting, but they're full of keywords. And so are the descriptions. So if anybody's listening to this, the keywords are the thing. Don't make a cute title. But aside from that, so what I started with was basically offering just your general ESL class, which, and that is still the bread and butter of my students. So where I'm using the general core curriculum, and on Florentis Learning, you have levels 1 through 6. So I have the spectrum. I'll teach ages 3 through 18. And so I'm teaching students in every level. And that is the bread and butter. But what started happening as I was teaching is parents started asking for specific things. Are you good?
I'm good. I have to find the dog. My parents' dog is visiting. I don't know where the dog is. Come on in, Jilly.
So fun.
I'm like, oh, I'm not used to having a dog. She's very cute, but she's
their work.
We're all good. I can come back and sit down at my desk.
So funny. So parents started asking me for specific things. Like, for example, a lot of the students that I teach go to private international schools, and there's an interview process that's involved in that. And so parents started emailing me, or like, through the messaging on Outschool, they would start messaging me lists of questions. My student is going to be having an interview. Will you have them practice for this interview? So I was like, okay, I'm going to make a class. This is obviously a need.
Yeah.
I'm going to make a class about practicing for a school interview. And then one thing I noticed was a lot of the students in Asia, and there are these things all over every country, whether it's China or whatever, a lot of them participate in public speaking competitions. So
Yeah, I've had students do that as well. And
so I created that. Yeah, keep
okay.
going.
And do you have, I know mine, usually for me, it's like, oh, my child is going to do a competition tomorrow. I was like, oh, okay.
Yes, they live on the edge over there, right? Because they're so busy.
Yeah.
They're so busy, right? So it's always, everything is last minute. Yes.
Yeah.
It will. And so, but it blossomed from there because I had parents ask me about writing. And so I created a writing class, which, another shameless plug for your curriculum. When you created the beginning sentence writing class, that I created a beginning sentence writing class on Outschool, because that's like gold, right? And I have students enrolled in it all the time from the time I started it. And I don't have a ton of students, but I'm trying to think. I think I have 2 right now that are in that class. But then because they take that class and they like it, then they end up wanting to take another class. So I'm trying to think what else. Oh, and the speaking. So you have the speaking classes on Florentis. Well, I started having parents who they enrolled in the general class and we're doing the slides. But then one of the things about having to really understand the culture and the students and where they're coming from, students from China are a completely different thing than students from South Korea or Japan, just because the style of education and what they are exposed to or what they have available to them is so different. And so I find that the students from South Korea and Japan, these kids are fluent in reading English, many of them, by the time they're 5. So they are not needing someone saying, ball. Like, that's just not what they need. They want to hear the native accent. They want exposure to just ideas and books and conversation. And so parents were asking me just for conversation classes. So I created a conversation class, and the conversation classes at Florentis have been helpful. Although I have had to modify, because I have these very young students that are capable of the advanced topics, but are 100% not interested in talking about pollution and tell me what your opinion is. So I've just, I've kind of brought up, like, say, the fast food lesson, and we'll discuss the concepts and then kind of see if they know the vocabulary. For example, I had a student from Taiwan who didn't know the word combo. And so we were able to talk about what a combo is, but not necessarily needing to read all the material or do the practice dialogue. They're already able to engage in conversation independently, but you can still use those more interesting topics to a younger student and just kind of use it as a framework or a jumping point. And it's great because then that gives you topics to talk about, and you're not, exhausting all of your ideas in your head and talking about the same things every time. So yeah, very helpful.
So sort of once you've got students enrolled, you mentioned that, some of them will take the writing class and then they want something else. Like, how do you sort of keep them coming back? And, do they do referrals? Like, do you sort of cross-sell them? Like, how do you keep them? Oh, you finished 10 weeks or you finished 10 lessons. What do you do to sort of keep them on Outschool and keep them as clients?
I write feedback after every class. It's not required. And I don't write a lot of feedback. I have 25-minute classes, or I do have one 55-minute class that a few people enroll in, but there's always a 5-minute buffer between the end of my class. So I don't take a ton of time. I do it in between, but I do write feedback in every class specifically. It's not like, oh, we learned this today. I might say, like, your student did well at engaging in conversation about things they can see in their neighborhood. At home this week, they can practice blah, 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 whatever. And I usually list like a few questions they can answer or a few pronunciation things. But I make sure to always say they can work on this to help the parent to understand your child has not arrived in their English ability. They still need to work on it. And so I'm going to keep coming back with suggestions for you. And I also do try to highlight how the class is benefiting them. So I don't say this every week, but I will try every few weeks or so. Your student showed improvement in their English skills, or I can see that they have advanced in their English skills today when they blah, 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 whatever, to try to remind the parents this class has value. And here, this is where we can see that this is the value. Your student was able to achieve this and has gained mastery in this area or whatever. So that goes a long way. And I think also just the relationship, I have some students that I've taught almost 300 classes with because they've been with me almost from the beginning, or some of them take classes twice a week and sometimes more than that when they're on vacation or whatever. So that relationship of just getting to know who that student is, what they like, where they're from. I know I commented on a Facebook post this week. One of my students that I have taught close to 300 lessons, she is always traveling. And this is a student from mainland China, who is very fluent. She's a level 5 student and she has traveled the world. She took me with her to the Chinese desert this week. And, but just having that relationship, like it just so happened, this is so crazy. My husband and I went on a Caribbean cruise several years ago. Well, at the same time, it was on Royal Caribbean. She was on a Royal Caribbean cruise, like somewhere around, I don't know. It was somewhere in the Indian Ocean. So it was out that way. But at the same time, we were on the same kind of ship. We were eating the same food because, they have the same menu from ship to ship. Yeah. We came and we were able to have that connection, and her parents were so excited. Like they came running into the room. They were showing me pictures on their phone, but just having that connection with the students and their families, that also keeps them coming back. Finding out their siblings' names and asking questions. There's a few younger siblings that are kind of getting close to the age where they could possibly take classes with me. So when those little faces pop on the camera, I am not shooing them away.
Yeah.
I am saying hello to them by name, so just trying to build those relationships.
So you've used the Florentis Learning curriculum. How has that sort of helped you manage prep time, keep your lessons engaging?
It is really so colorful, and the sounds, and I just learned, I don't know, a month ago, maybe you and Kelly Tagg were on. I did not know that I could give remote control access through Zoom so that the students could click on things. This is one of the interesting things too, I think, when you are an online teacher. I'm not necessarily someone that is like tech savvy, and I learned how to use Zoom the first day I had an Outschool class. Like that was it. I was just fumbling my way around Zoom, and still, I'm sure there's many things that I still don't know, but just the fact that the students can click and drag, if they can figure it out on their device, which some of my students can and some of them can't, but there's such a variety in each lesson of learning the vocabulary, and then you jump to sentences, and then there's listening activities, and first of all, it cuts down on prep because I do flip through the slides the first time I teach a class. And actually what I do is I make a little note card for every class, and I have a little, just a shoebox. We're real high tech here. But after I have taught that class one time, I know how many slides there are. I know when the last slide is. I know, because I just have little notes. So I know that these are the props I'm going to want to have if I want props, which I almost never even bring any props anymore because there's just so much there. So once I have that card, once I flip through the slides one time and I see, oh, I'm going to be teaching the lesson about taxis and buses, or whichever the two are together, I don't flip through the slides a second time. Like I know I've already taught that lesson. I know because The lessons follow a very predictable pattern of vocabulary, sentences, reading, grammar, or whatever. I know what's going to be there. There's not going to be any surprises. It's great. And I really feel like the material is high quality. It's right up there with VIPKid curriculum. I mean, I could never say enough good things about VIPKid curriculum. And I feel like you've really created a very similar model that I personally really enjoyed a lot. And so, just excellent job.
Well, the stars certainly are VIPKid-ish.
And I do have some students who have figured out how to give themselves stars. You mentioned that. And
yeah,
this is what I'm saying to sometimes those students, hands up, because I don't know if it's like this in your platform that you use, but when I give remote control access, then like we're doing the battle of the mouse because they take over, right? So then I have to be like, okay, hands up, stop clicking, or else I can't advance the next slide. So far I haven't had.
My platform's a co-browser. So we aren't fighting for the mouse because I use Qualigo. But but even within that, like I have one student in particular, and he decides he needs a star. He just takes one, and he's 5. And he decides he doesn't want to practice this word anymore. He changes the slide. He's like, nope, I'm done practicing that word.
Okay, no one has figured out how to advance slides yet.
Oh, he has. Yeah, he's like, no, I've said this word 5 times. You keep making me say this word, and I don't want to.
I'm done. Let's go.
So he's he's pretty tech savvy for sure. He drags the letters around, he spells the words, he does all of that, but he also sometimes decides he's in charge, which is okay. There's enough content there, and I could easily still fill the class even when he's decided he's done of a slide.
Now, one thing that's interesting, you mentioned the spelling and dragging the letters around. I did know this was a thing, but I didn't realize how widespread it was. The students can spell the words, but they almost never know all of the names of the letters. So that has been a good opportunity for me to review, even with some students that are a little on the older side, letter names, and even sometimes the sounds. Like they can spell the letters, but they don't even necessarily know the actual sound of the letter. So that has been a little eye-opening for me. And just to give, and sometimes I will give that in the feedback. Your student needs to practice the names and sounds of the following letters. Because I take notes, pen and paper notes just on a little piece of paper. And that helps me to remember what to say in the feedback. But yeah, so I love that. I love the spelling. It's really helpful.
Well, and I found the spelling was really helpful for helping students. It was another opportunity to practice the vocabulary words, but it also was helping to reinforce the phonics and the spelling and the sounds and the letters. And then it was easier for them to recognize that word then when it was time to read, right? Because it was like, oh, I've seen the word, I've spelled the word, I've done the decoding and encoding. Lacey's here, and Lacey's saying that she's noticed that too, that the students have the missing letters and letter sound names, which is really rather interesting because sometimes you have quite fluent students that are like, they don't know what the letter is. And when they try to decode words, they don't necessarily have the skill to decode the word because they don't know the sounds.
Right.
Very memorization based often.
Right, which would make sense, right? Because they're memorizing characters when they're reading, whether it's Korean or Japanese or Chinese, like that's what they do.
Yeah. So do you teach private students as well outside of Outschool, or do you just teach on Outschool? Or
I do teach a few private students. I did have one very enterprising mom who I don't really know how she did this, but she found my email address somehow. She searched for me online and she contacted me. And she had taken I have a few self-paced classes on Outschool. Her daughter had taken a couple of self-paced classes, and she emailed me and she's like, hey, would you be willing to teach my student privately? And I was like, sure. And because she knew, which not all parents always know this, but she knew that Outschool took 30% of a teacher's pay. And she's
Ah.
like, well, I know what you actually earn per class. So would you be willing to teach my daughter off the platform for what you actually earn, not what you charge? And I was like, and she also said, and I will advertise and find you new students. And she has. And so we have a little deal. This thrifty mom from Taiwan, we have a little deal. So she will occasionally find me a new student. So I will give her a free class for every new student who takes a class and pays for it. And she has negotiated off-platform prices, and which, you know what, I will say, the thing about Taiwan, I do have some students from Taiwan who do pay the outrageously high prices on the platform, but for the most part, students from Taiwan only take self-paced classes. I'm going to say that's 90% of the time, and I don't know a lot about Taiwan's economy, but I'm going to have to guess that their income is not as high as the students I have from other countries. And so they want the classes, and they're finding a way to do it for a little bit cheaper. And so I respect them for that. So anyway, I have some private students from Taiwan who found me.
And so do you actively promote private lessons, or you just promote your lessons on Outschool?
I don't, because I am willing to have some private students, and I even like the security of having private students. And if Outschool were to fire me, or they were to crash and burn or whatever, however, if I were to lose that job, however way, I would certainly be more proactive at continuing teaching, and I would build up a private business. But there is a different level of work involved that goes hand in hand with having a private business. And so you kind of have to decide. Outschool takes 30% of my base pay, whatever, and that's a lot of money. But for me, at the stage of life that I'm in, and the level of busyness that I have in my life, and just the idea of invoicing and having a platform, and for me, it's worth it for Outschool to take that 30% and handle all of that for me, for most of my students. So I'm really not. So I have my super fan mom, Meaghan fan, who does advertise for me in Taiwan, and I'm happy to take on some private students. But at this time, it's not a huge priority for me. But if it had to be a priority, I would make it a priority. So.
And so you mentioned self-paced courses. So what types of things do you do with self-paced courses?
I just have a few ESL self-paced courses. It's not, the earbuds keep falling out. It's not something that first of all, they're not very successful. Outschool did try to really promote having the self-paced courses a few years ago. And it just never really, I mean, maybe for others it just has not taken off for me. I rarely have a student enroll in one. The work that's involved in recording self-paced classes is just, I just hate making video. Like, the whole thing is just not a fun thing. So I have a couple, but they're just not, they're there. They don't really get used much. So, but some people love them. I have heard other people say they make like $1,000 extra income per month from self-paced classes. I don't personally see that happening, but some people, I just don't know what they're doing that generates all that income.
Unless they have a lot of self-paced courses, or they're very expensive, but.
Or I think some of the sciences, maybe like high school sciences, some of the writing, like just kind of more mainstream classes that are geared toward North American learners. I think maybe that's where people are finding some success there.
Okay. So. Maybe homeschool students are.
Right. When they're doing the kind of upper level sciences that maybe parents are not as proficient in teaching. I think it's kind of those types of things, how to write a research paper, those kinds of things.
Yeah.
So
cool. And so what sort of like one thing that you wish you knew when you started on Outschool that you know now that you would have done differently, or would be something that would be helpful for people?
I I guess I would say really go with your passion. My passion really was to teach ESL classes, but I'm also a rule follower. So the boss said, don't teach ESL. So I kind of listened and obeyed, right? But if whatever it is, if you're an online teacher, the thing that you're good at, that's the thing where you're going to shine, and parents and learners are going to see that. So my passion is to teach ESL, and specifically, I love teaching kids from Asia. I don't know what it is about those Asian countries, but I just love their culture, and I just love them. And I think that you see that when you love something, the people that are with you, that are experiencing that with you, they see that love and excitement, and they want to. That's attractive. So whatever your passion is, I would say that would be the thing to really go after.
And what advice would you give to a teacher who's struggling to get students?
That is a tricky one. I guess I would say get on the social media that is actually used. And by that, I mean get on TikTok and Instagram. I am not on TikTok and Instagram. So if I were really wanting to advertise, I would get on TikTok and Instagram. And though, because those, or even get on Chinese social media, or I don't even know if there's specific, but there's got to be specific social media in South Korea and Japan too, that I'm just not even aware of. And learn how to use those social medias appropriately. Like, right. If you're on Chinese social media, there's certainly things that you need to know culturally and even like rule wise with the government. That you're going to get yourself kicked off like right away if you do things wrong. So make sure you know what you're doing. But so I would say use the social media that is actually getting used by your specific client. I'm not following my own advice, but that's the advice I would say to follow.
And so sort of what's next? What do you like? Do you have plans for new courses? What are you sort of thinking as your next Outschool step or not Outschool step?
Well, I do want to learn test prep. So super excited that Florentis has some test prep courses, but I myself also need to get educated because I have watched a few YouTube videos about IELTS. And I know that's a really big one. And I also have a contract with Cambly. I don't really teach on Cambly, but Cambly also has some test prep courses that I've just looked at. I've become certified in, and I never get students that want me to teach them, but I've kind of just looked at them for my own education. But I want to learn these tests, and I want to learn how to teach students that are preparing for the tests. It definitely broadens your range. I will very occasionally get students in that like 14 to 18 age range on Outschool, but it's rare. But I know that if I can start becoming proficient and offer test prep courses for these high school students, that would open, and you can charge. I mean, they're going to pay good money for those courses too. So that would definitely just be an income boost, a way to increase my income. So that's definitely something I'm interested in gaining education. And I know sometimes IELTS is the one that I know the most about, but you kind of have to get certain certifications sometimes to even be able to say, or to be able to like morally and ethically say that you're able to teach these classes. You really need to get the education. So I know there are some courses out there. And so that's something that when and if I ever have the time, I'd like to become proficient in.
Yeah. And even for the Cambridge ones, Cambridge offers lots of free sort of webinars for teachers, and they've got lots of free education on all the time. But yeah, test prep I have some students that I do test prep with, and test prep is certainly a unique beast. And it depends on the timeline, because sometimes the timelines are not very long. But I usually find it's about identifying their weaknesses, because it's not necessarily all 4 domains. It's usually, they need to focus on speaking, and they need to focus on, listening or something. But I know that the especially some of the like B2 first or some of the more difficult exams, often it actually they can read and all of those things, but they don't necessarily have the vocabulary, or they're missing a adverbs versus, adjectives piece in terms of trying to fill in those blanks. So it's sort of interesting when you start to see some of your students' results. Like if you have any students that are taking sort of core classes and they go and they take a like a key KET or a PET exam, and then to see the results, because I know when I first started seeing them, I would be surprised. I'm like, oh, they're really good at reading, right? And then you get in and you look at the types of questions that they actually are expected to do, and it's like, oh, well, picking the correct word in that blank, actually, I might struggle with some of these questions. Like,
Okay, right. Yeah.
so it's interesting to look at some of the sample exams and stuff like that. So yeah, I the speaking part of it I enjoy the most, because it's about, like, some of them there's a picture they describe and then having a conversation with others, and so the speaking one is probably the easiest to prepare for, because it's a very sort of defined process, and then having a wide range of topics they can talk about. But I've had students get full marks on their speaking exam, and parents have been like, oh yeah, they got like all of their points, and I'm like, oh, okay, good.
Wow. And that, what a compliment to you, right? Because that's really a lot of
Yeah.
the online classes really focus on the speaking.
Yeah. No, and certainly I've really tried to incorporate that speaking into all of them, and even the test prep type stuff too, in the regular lessons, to sort of look at the types of activities that are in there so that they have exposure to some of those questions. Because for me, one of the biggest issues I find is that the parents often decide, oh, they're going to take it, it's last minute, and it's like, oh, why didn't you tell me that they were going to take this exam? We could have done things. And so by weaving it into the core, they hopefully will be better prepared in the first place. So
Right.
that's my
Right.
approach on it. But I know that we've had requests for test prep specific lessons. Lacey's here. I know she's using the KET exam lessons, and then I've been using the B2 first lessons with one of my students lately. So and we have a few more people watching silently. They haven't shared any comments, but if you are teaching and want to share sort of what you're teaching, by all means, drop a note in the comments. If you are not familiar with Florentis Learning and haven't yet checked out our free sample, we have a sample pack which has about 20 lessons or so in it now. It has a sample from phonics. It has a sample from each of the speaking lessons. So there's 4 speaking lessons. It's got some test prep samples. It's got 2 lessons from the core. It's got writing samples. So sort of everything is there that you can get a good idea what the lessons are really like. So I will drop the link in the comments. I can't type and talk sometimes, which, you'd think as a teacher I would be able to do that very well.
I can't do it either.
And yeah, so thank you, Kathy, so much for sharing your practical ideas and your experience. And I know teachers watching will take lots of interesting tidbits away from your story.
Thanks.
And if you are an online teacher who wants to simplify your prep, like Kathy has done, and keep your students engaged, then by all means, check out the Florentis Learning ESL curriculum. You can pick up the entire curriculum for less than $10 a month, and no commitment. And so you can try it out. And if you've enjoyed this interview, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with another teacher. And hopefully they will find it helpful as well. Thanks for joining, and have a fantastic day. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.